everyone. My topic, why we all need women in tech, I find it very interesting. And the reason why I find it very interesting is because most of the people, when I speak to an industry, don't even realize that this problem even exists. And I don't find it weird because in my first 5 years, when I joined industry, I didn't even realize that this is actually a problem, despite of me working on a floor which had perhaps about 100 engineers and 4 women. And I never even felt that there needs to be, something needs to be done to have more women coming in technology and doing more wonderful things than what we are doing right now. I have been talking about this topic in different conferences with different people across the globe, different countries. And one thing that has come out very differently was that if you look at the history, right from 1800, if you see Ada, who wrote the first computer program, if you look at the first 2 software houses of UK, founders of them, they were women. If you look at 1800 and 1950s, 1960s, 1970s, you would find that there were a lot more number of women in tech in comparison to the total population at that time and the size of the industry. Even today, we have Marissa Mayer, who's running Yahoo. We have Cheryl, who's CEO of Facebook. We have Stacy from My Social Cloud. We have quite a few. We have Bareen, who's supposed to be, I think, the youngest college graduate who has raised $1 million in funding. So there are quite a few women in tech, but then the question is, are there enough? Or the 50% of the population of the world is women. Do we have enough representation in tech to resemble that number? Now, when I was preparing this presentation, I looked at different numbers which are available online, different surveys which have been done over the last 5 years, 10 years. And this was the graph that came up, which basically said that of the total workforce that works in technology, only 30% is women, and out of which 20% are in leadership roles. And that to me was quite staggering. I mean, if I look at the history, 1800, 1950, 1960, I would actually expect that number to be little more, if not 50% or 60%. And if you see this graph, technology in general is doing comparatively to manufacturing, transportation, which are male-dominating industries. And if you talk to, there are quite a few people who acknowledge, who realize that this is a problem, but then there are few people who don't even think that this is a problem. And before we go any further, I would just want to iterate some facts which actually tells that there's something wrong. What is it? Is something that we need to determine. But I personally believe that if you really understand the problem, if you acknowledge the problem, then you are halfway there in finding a solution to it. If you are oblivious to the problem itself, if you don't even acknowledge that there is a problem, then there's no way you would ever come up with a solution. And so if you look at these numbers, these are the 4, the big technology companies, Google, Facebook, Yahoo, LinkedIn, and there are quite a few which I've missed out from the slide. Everywhere, the ratio of women in technology is 30%. It's 30, 35%. Nowhere, despite of technology companies being, they are good employers, well-paid jobs, and there's a home field advantage as well. Now, despite of all of that, these numbers don't really say that this industry is really flourishing for women, I would say. Now, and the numbers of 2004 are even more staggering. I mean, they're daunting. If you look at 2004 e-skills number, they're saying that the women working in tech sector has actually fallen. 28 FTSE companies, out of FTSE 250 companies, they still don't have female board members. Out of the people who were hired in 2013, only 14% were women. Now, these numbers are despite of the fact that there are so many initiatives going on across the globe for getting more women in tech. Now, some would say, is it? And in fact, this was one of my friends who actually said, is it because females are not that competent? Is it because they are not that great at technology? Is it because technology is more about solving problems and probably males are good at that? And I would disagree. And the reason why I disagree, and I can corroborate that with the facts, is if you look at this graph, this says, I mean, you could kind of like relate the numbers, but this actually says that the financial performance of, so this was made based on the top 20 companies who are doing absolutely fantastic. If you look at it, out of like all the leaders that they have, 37% of those leaders are women, and 12% of all those leaders are high potential women. Versus if you look at the other side, the bottom 20%, you would find that there is also like the less number of women in the leaders. 19% of all leaders are women. So is it because firm is not doing that well because they don't have enough number of women in their board? I wouldn't say that, but this does indicate something. Now, to answer to the first question, that are women really not competent, or are they not really that great at problem-solving skills? I mean, again, so scientifically, it's been proven that man's brain are 10% larger than female's brain, and their left brain is more active. Now, what that means is they are supposed to be better at problem-solving skills. Now, that's all right. However, what's not been noticed is the transfer of data between the left brain and the right brain is faster for women in comparison to men. And now what that means is the right side is the creative side, left side is the problem-solving side. If the data transfer between those two brains is faster, then that means that female will be good at using their creativity to identifying problems and then solving it. So they might not be great at solving problems in general, but they will be great at identifying them, using their creative bent to solve that problem effectively and efficiently. And that's scientific. Now, other than that, there was this another thing that somebody said. They were saying that usually in 30s, female would take off for about 3-4 years. They would go off on the maternity leave, and when they come back, subconsciously, everybody knows that they have been out of the industry. They take some time to come up on speed, and probably that's why they don't end up in being on the boards on the board for different companies. Now, I look at it from different side. When you go on maternity leave, when you actually become a parent, and this is true for male and female both, you kind of develop certain skills. You learn how to be patient. You learn how to sacrifice, where to sacrifice. You learn how to build people. That nurturing thing automatically comes in. That interpersonal skills of building relationship, of building other people, you tend to develop that. So why don't we look at that 4 years period when somebody is going out on maternity leave or paternity leave for a time being spent on developing those subtle skills which would help an organization in long term. And I agree, this will be a long-term investment, but if we are to really solve this problem in a right way, then you have to look at the bigger picture, not just the short-term stuff. Now, in terms of revenues, in most of the conferences that I have been to, I've usually seen that when a female comes on the stage and start pitching for the firm they founded, they won't be really gung-ho about it. I mean, they won't be that excited or that bubbly, or they won't really project numbers in a way that they have done something astonishing. Now, is it because that's lack of confidence, or is it because they are more realistic, more pragmatic? Now, people do perceive that as lack of confidence versus, I feel that's more pragmatism. So we know we have done well, and I think that's in general like nature, that we know we have done well, we know that we are doing good, but then we still want to put our foot on the ground and make sure that we continue to do that well. That isn't lack of confidence, that's more like reality. Now, that also corroborates with these numbers, because if you look at the female-founded companies' finances, you would see that they produce 12% higher revenue. They produce, if they're venture funded, they produce 12% higher revenue, and versus they achieve 35% greater ROI in general. And if you ask me, why is that? I mean, this could be like an hour discussion, but if you ask me to summarize that why it's really that, I think it's more psychological perception. It needs to be answered that why a girl should code, and I think it's more about thinking that programming language is not a technology. It's a creative tool via which, just like any other, just like a pen and paper, via which you could get things, you could draw things, you could get your creativity out, you can build things. That's what programming language is all about. So I guess that perception in the industry needs to change. And how do we really address the problem? I think the way to address is motivate, and then at the same time, I think that at the workplaces, what really needs to change is that sometimes women are being treated with double standards. Like, I have to work double as hard as my male colleague, and just because I want to prove that I'm not here because I'm a woman, I'm here because of my capabilities, because of my potential. And I think all these initiatives, the initiative that that we have now in the schools, programming language is being taught right at the age of 5 years. At least it's been introduced in the schools. That's like a great initiative, and I think more and more those initiatives takes place. I guess then we do see some light at the end of the tunnel. I come from this organization, Women Who Code. It's a global non-profit organization. We have about, I think we are present now in, so this number is outdated, I think we are now in 16 countries, and we do like events regularly every month. We conduct hack days for girls. We conduct like different events, different talk opportunities. So that's where we come from. And this is like the whole gist of my slide. This lady, she's Catherine. She actually ran Boston Marathon in 1967. When the organizer realized that there's a female who's running in the marathon, he actually went back and he wanted her to pull her out of the marathon. All other people, they actually supported her. She ran it, definitely, and then she ended up winning the New York Marathon just after the Boston one. And what I'm trying to show with this is, I think women has a lot of potential. They bring variety of, they bring like the fresh view. They bring that emotional stability that you need now in building teams, a robust value system, and if given the opportunity, they will do a lot more than what they are doing right now. And that's effectively why we need more women in tech. So, yeah.